This is the NFL Weekend Review Show on the Flex Network.
Going up, coming down, does he come down with it? Does Golden State have it? He's in the end zone, he has!
This is the Flex Network.
Unbelievable! Romo
Flex
can't get the
Network.
squad down!
Flex on them.
Run Zeke. Up the middle, he's gone! Zeke's gone! Goodbye, Zeke! Touchdown! Short yardage, pinched in. The dog's got out.
Flex on the G.
Brandon in the gun, third and 8. Crowd making noise. Manning 5 steps. Here comes the run. Taco's got it. That's an Eli taco. Oh, low snap. He picks it up. He looks, he stands, he rushes. Oh, he's up the middle. He's running up the middle and boom!
Ladies and gentlemen, we are back. The Flex Network is back. I'm Flex Mike at Flex Mike 11 on Twitter. The man next to me with his Tampa Bay Buccaneers backdrop is the one, the only SnowMan at AJS Dead Snow on Twitter. What is up, Snow?
What is up, everybody? A great championship weekend concludes, and we now know who's going to Super Bowl 55.
Right, and we today's going to be a much shorter show than most of our listeners / viewers are used to, but we are not, just to kind of preface everything, we are not going to be making our picks this week. We're just recapping a little bit of the action. We're going to talk a little bit about some news, and we're going to save our prediction for the Super Bowl next week as we break down a little more in depth next week what we might think about the Super Bowl coming up. But Snow, I've waited too long. Flash those final standings up there to let the people know who the champ is for the Pick'em this season. Snow, Cowboy Cam, and myself, we all went head to head during the season, picking every game, having a tiebreaker game every single week, and some of us had good weeks, some of us had bad weeks. I let Cam get way too far ahead. I just didn't even wake up until late in the season, but I woke up when it mattered, and I took the W home this year. And let's see, I was 171 correct, 94 wrong, and 1 tie. How did I get a tie? Because there was a tie game?
Yeah, we had week 3. We had that Cincinnati Philly game that was tied.
Oh yeah, that's LOL moment of the season for me.
Yeah,
that's kind of ridiculous.
Here's the funny thing: we all chose in that game. We chose Cincinnati. We all went Cincinnati in that game back in week 3, but because they finished in a tie, we just chalked it up as, okay, everyone tied.
Yeah, because you technically weren't right, but you also technically weren't wrong either. So it seems to make sense there. Okay. Anyway, I made a storming comeback here. If you remember, Snow, it's about week 9, right? Week 9, I don't know how many games down, how many points back, all that stuff. I was like,
you were 7 games back by week 9. At week 9, you had 7 games back.
Most people would say, hey, that's not that much. But when you take into account that a lot of our picks are the same, and there's usually about anywhere from 2 games to maybe a maximum of 5 games where we differ, where the homer side of us comes out a little bit, or maybe we take a risk on this team or that team, right? But for the most part, all of our picks have kind of been together. They've kind of been close to each other because we like to try and be realistic when it comes to some of this stuff. And so I was able to close the gap a little bit. It was in part to like me having a couple of weeks there where I guessed it had some high number of correct guesses, while at the same time in that same week, Cam had a week there where he had a lot of wrong guesses, and so a lot of wrong picks.
Well, I can actually pinpoint it because you went on a tear from starting week 9 all the way through week 13.
Yeah, I want to hear that.
On a win streak.
Yeah, tell me about this tear. Only
Okay.
mention the good things that I did and the bad things that Cam did. If there's bad things about me, I don't want to hear them, obviously. I only want to hear the good things about me and the bad things about Cam.
And notice, by the time we got, so from week 9 through week 11, you went 9-5 all 3 weeks. You tied with Cam week 10 and week 9 with 9-5s. So you had 2 weeks of tiedness. But then it all changed come Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving was the turning point because that's where you went out and busted a 13-3 pick week for week 12, and then week 13 you went 10-3, and by then you had taken the 1-point lead.
So let's just talk about this. First of all, that reminds me of 2 things. Thanksgiving, the most slept on holiday of the year. It's so underrated. It's fantastic. Food is great. All that good stuff, right?
Yeah.
Put some respect on Thanksgiving's name. Number 2, Thanksgiving is the start of like the best time of the year. We're talking the season from Thanksgiving to Christmas and all that good stuff, right? So it's only fitting in this time that happens. And so I'm glad that it happened. And I mean, obviously, who wouldn't be glad if they came out on top with it? But Snow, you a lot like Cam, the thing that bit both of you guys, and I'll tell you what it is right now. You are a guy who goes with your heart a lot, along with Cam, and so Cam went with the Cowboys. Obviously, he's going to go with the Cowboys. He's very realistic at the same time, but he allows his homerism to get in the way sometimes, and it takes center stage with it when he thinks that his team should be winning. But and you allowed that with the Raiders, which I don't blame you. The Raiders have a great roster, and they should have won more games than they actually won. But
truth be told,
yes, absolutely. And so I was just lucky that because I went with the Seahawks every single week. I didn't care who we played.
Same here. I went Seahawks all the way.
And I just got lucky that Seattle went 12-4 in comparison to what did the Cowboys go? What did they end up going? 6-10 or something like that. And then what's up, Alex Torres? He says, checking in, boys. What's up, Alex? Thanks for tuning in.
The Cowboys finished a rousing 6-10, 2-4 in the division.
Right, so 6-10, and then the Raiders ended up what? I know the Raiders missed the playoffs along with the Cowboys. They weren't 6-10 level. I don't feel like.
No, they were better. They were 4-2 in the division. The only 2 losses they had were against. Bring up that damn schedule. They lost 1 to the Chiefs and 1 to the Bolts. Otherwise, and they were a solid 8-8 for the season.
Okay.
So
which is what the Cowboys normally are. Yeah. Okay. Let's talk about, before we get into the recaps, let's talk about some news that happened. We've been in a crazy season of coaches being interviewed, coaches being hired, all of those things. I'll just mention a few things. Some of the top headlines we have are Jason Witten today announced his retirement. Greg Olson late last week announced his retirement. Jason Witten's retirement was probably a little bit longer overdue than Greg Olson's was, but Greg Olson had a
17-year
spot waiting
career.
for him. Yes, they both had great careers. Don't get me wrong. Neither one of them got a Super Bowl, unfortunately, but they both are going to go down as two of the best tight ends in NFL history. So, great careers to those guys. Let's see some other NFL news. Everyone's heard about the offensive tackle who the Seahawks had on their roster, Chad Wheeler. Former, yes, he was cut. He was cut today, as he should have been. Just some very nasty domestic violence accusations and things like that. And he's probably going to end up going to jail for quite some time, and he probably deserves it. That's just not.
He's been charged with first-degree domestic violence, assault, domestic violence, unlawful imprisonment, and resisting arrest.
Yeah, so he's in trouble. He has no room for any type of potential NFL career. Dude's gonna go to jail, and so that's probably where he deserves to be. Let's see. So there's that one. A lot of shakeup with the NFL. Coaches moving around, all that stuff. There continues to be a lot of trade talk surrounding guys like Deshaun Watson. Matt Stafford has officially asked the Lions for his. I don't know if he asked for a release, but I know he at least asked to be traded. He wants to be traded or released.
Yeah, it's more along the lines of they're not going to renew, and he just wants to get out of Detroit. And I think anyone in Detroit, it's like, you know what? After so long of all these bad moments, and there has been some handful of good moments with Matt, Stafford as the quarterback of these cardiac cats, but I think it was just time for him to get out of Detroit and realize that he does not need the stress of being in Detroit and trying to either save this kitty or just try to avoid stinking it up.
Yeah, Detroit has been pushing people out for quite a while. Barry Sanders retired early from Detroit. Calvin Johnson retired early from Detroit. Matt Stafford is trying to get out. Anybody that's really been worth anything coming out of Detroit, if they've wanted to get out of there for whatever reason. I don't know if it's an ownership thing, if it's a GM thing, what the deal is, but a lot of these guys have just, for whatever reason, they haven't wanted to stick around there. And so that's some of the things that are going on there. There continues to be the speculation with Deshaun Watson, like I mentioned. There's speculation with JJ Watt. If honestly, if you're on the Houston Texans roster and you think that your name could be moved with any type of draft compensation, you might as well consider yourself traded. Once the official league year opens up in March, and so we'll see what happens there.
It's just going to be very interesting to see who wants a franchise quarterback in Deshaun Watson. Who's going to make Deshaun Watson their franchise quarterback, and who is willing to give up the most to get him.
Yeah.
But,
so, a lot of newsworthy things going on. Let's talk about the Los Angeles Rams have absolutely been depleted of their coaching staff. They lost their defensive coordinator. He was hired. They just lost their passing game coordinator, and he was hired for the Seahawks offensive coordinator position. So there's been a lot of there's been a lot of players, and well, maybe not players as of yet, but could be players. But coaches have left. The defensive coordinator left, like I said, and so the Rams are going to be way different next year. And so,
it may be way different, even more so, other than the coaching staff. depending on the quarterback situation if Goff is not out of there.
Yeah, the problem here is, you're talking about Matt Stafford. You talk about some of the free agent quarterbacks that are out there or guys that want to be traded or cut, right? So you talk about Goff. You talk about Jimmy Garoppolo. You talk about Matt Stafford, like we mentioned, Dak Prescott, Deshaun Watson, and we talk about I'm missing one. Oh, Carson Wentz, right? Most of those guys that I mentioned are among the highest paid quarterbacks in the NFL.
Oh, yeah.
Matt Stafford has a big contract. We know that Goff and Wentz and Deshaun Watson all have big contracts. We know Garoppolo's got a big contract. Dak is in line for a big contract and should have already had one. Yeah, he deserves to be paid. But here's the situation, man. You can't cut in today's world, the way contracts work. Like, I saw something that, if Carson Wentz isn't on the Eagles come opening or week 1 of the 2021 season, then it's a big time salary cap hit for the Philadelphia Eagles, right? And so, like, if these players aren't on these teams come week 1, doesn't mean they're starting, but they just have to be on the roster. If they're not on the roster, then you're talking some big bucks hitting the bank account of these NFL teams, and so there's an issue, and they need to figure it out. They need to get the right coaches in there to get these quarterbacks and play calling and all that stuff all on the same page, because if they don't, there's going to be some issues. And so, there's potential for some players to be moving around here, and so it'll be interesting to see once the NFL league year opens up. So,
not only that, but you also got to remember with free agency, you also got to remember the draft. That's going to play a big equation into what the team's going to look like and the decision making going forward. Is this something we're going to heavily invest in a free agent, knowing we have a high draft pick, or we're not in a draft, choice like the Seahawks are in the first round? Or is this something we're not going to go heavily into free agency because we're going to look to the draft and build from there? So a lot of questions once the 2021 and 2022 season starts come March.
Yeah, there's been a lot of conversation about kind of how the combine is this year, how it's going to be different. The salary cap is going to be reduced. There's been a lot of things going on with some of that, right? So teams typically have leaned a little bit heavier towards the draft in comparison to free agency to build their teams a little bit. And so there's a question that you could ask yourself: could you see these NFL franchises go after guys who were free agents because they have information on those guys? They know what those guys are about in comparison to these guys that are coming through the NFL draft, because we have not seen enough of them. Either their conference had a schedule that was cut in half, had games canceled due to COVID, things like that. We know that the combine is going to be a little bit different. You're not going to be able to sit in a room with a guy and interview him. They have to do everything virtually now, right? And so when it comes to running your 40s and doing your bench press and all the combine workouts that you have to do, it's all going to be done at your respective schools. Pro day, right? Mm-hmm. And so there's a lot of things to kind of, pros and cons. You got to weigh it there and see what's going on. But, I could see an argument or a conversation at least that says, well, maybe we just don't take the risk this year or next year, and we sign this free agent that's over here. He had 10 sacks last year. We might be able to get that guy. Or he had 20 catches, 30, 50 receptions last year. Let's go with that guy until we can figure out what this kind of draft combine stuff is going to look like. What do you think about that?
I like that idea to a degree. But you also have to take into consideration, number one, for free agents, why are these people who are leaving certain cities, why are they leaving that city? Was it because they weren't producing enough, or was their contract too high? And like you said, the salary cap is going to change, is going to drop drastically this year, this coming year, because of COVID. And again, money was not coming in as normal as past years. And as far as the draft is concerned, you got to remember, with a lot of the football done later in the year because of COVID, October, November, and December, and you got some idea of who you could be looking at. You got, everyone was viewing, but a lot of the scouts weren't able to attend the games, of course, because areas may or may not have had availability to let fans in, so it's only going to be essential personnel. But again, it's a gamble for if you were going to go the free agent route, because again, you don't know why 100. I mean, let me try to get this wording right. You may or may not know the full extent of why they left, why they're being cut, to a degree, and maybe they weren't producing enough. Maybe it was time for them to get out of there. Their contract is just too high and they're going to get cut. So, or they just couldn't come to an agreement on a contract, and some, they want, the teams wanted to give less, players wanted more, they couldn't agree. So it's a give and take kind of thing of where you're willing to, how much you're willing to gamble now compared to how much you're willing to get, gamble for the future prospects with the draft.
Yeah, in years past, a guy would choose to not re-sign with his current team because he felt like he could go out on the market, the free agent market, and get more money, right? And I think there's going to be a lot of humility handed out to a lot of guys this offseason. Not because teams aren't willing to pay, but just because of the reduced salary cap. Budgets are going to be crunched. Things are going to be a little more difficult, right? So a guy's going to go into the free agent market thinking that he can get more money than a team's offering. And when it comes down to it, he might get more money, but he might not at the same time. And guys that I initially think about, I think about Chris Carson for the Seattle Seahawks. I think about Aaron Jones for the Green Bay Packers. I think about any big time free agent defensive end that's out there that is going to be out there in the market. There's, like I said, humility will be handed out to a lot of these guys. They're either going to come crawling back to the team that they were just with, or they're gonna accept less than what they wanted to accept to go to another place. And so those are all things to think about, and we won't know exactly until it happens, obviously.
Yeah, but don't forget, like with the New England Patriots this year, they had a lot of players sit out this year, so things could be changed. Things might come up for debate, for at least for the New England Patriots, of what their salary cap is going to look like if those players sit out again next year, if they opt out, or if they come back. So
yeah, and
the fact
another thing
that left.
Another thing you could also see is teams cutting players a year earlier than they wanted to.
Yeah.
Teams going into contract talks with players that they have to restructure their deals so that they can fit the money that they need for a new draft class, or the money that they need for a guy that they want to get out of free agency, So those are all things to think about. And so we're going to move on here as we're going to discuss the AFC and the NFC Championship games. Like I said earlier in the podcast, we will not be doing our predictions this week because we'll be doing them next week. And so let's talk first about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers beating the Green Bay Packers 31-26. Let's see a few stats for you. Tom Brady threw for 280, 3 touchdowns and 3 picks. Aaron Rodgers threw for 346 and 3 touchdowns and 1 interception. Let's see. Leonard Fournette had 12 carries for 55 yards. Chris Godwin had 5 catches for 110 yards. Marquez Valdez-Scantling had 4 catches, 115 yards, and a touchdown. I believe one of those catches was like 55 something, maybe 55 yards, just in one reception. So, yeah, the story of this game was
Tampa Bay.
the referees were not as much. I would say the story of this game was the referees really allowing the players to play.
Yeah.
They kept
I think that this is a game that was well done. I mean, you got to think, you could have had a game where everything was called, some calls that might have been like, he only touched him a little bit, and it's, nope, we're calling it. He touched him. No, they let them play. They wanted to know who was the best team. And to be honest, only 6 penalties the entire game. 6. 4 for Green Bay, 2 for Tampa Bay. They let them play, which was best football.
They did. Here's the issue I had with the game. I felt, let's talk about this. Number one, who I love to make fun of him because he's a University of Washington Husky, but old Green Bay's corner over there on the left side, Mr. Kevin King himself, Mr. First-round draft pick, okay, at the University of Washington, was the reason why the Green Bay Packers lost this game. He gave up a 13-yard touchdown pass to Mike Evans over the top. Then he gave up a just ridiculous, late second quarter touchdown pass to Scotty Miller. Scotty Miller just absolutely torched him. Another one there, right? And he gave up multiple receptions to Chris Godwin to kind of pad his stats a little bit. And then late in the game, when the Packers needed a stop and technically got the stop on a 3rd down, which would have forced Tampa Bay to punt, he gets called for, the replay showed pulling on the jersey. I don't know if they called pass interference or if they called holding on that play. Either way, It was a 1st down for Tampa Bay, and that was it, right?
Yep.
This is what bothered me about that exact play is the referees, the officials for the game, the entire game were letting them play. There were other plays on Green Bay and on Tampa Bay, both sides of the ball, that you could have called pass interference on, and they weren't calling it the whole game. And they waited for the most crucial moment of the game to call that penalty. And I'm telling you, Snow, it drove me up the wall because it wasn't consistent with. And by no means am I a Packers fan, but I just felt like the Packers,
got cheated on
what you and I talk about we talk about wrestling, right? And so it's like this is Montreal screw job level to me. I'm so annoyed by this because I'm like, I feel like someone screwed the Packers out of this game because of that. I just felt like that was so bad. I didn't like it. And it just wasn't consistent with what they were doing the whole game. And so I don't know. I didn't like it. It rubbed me the wrong way. And I didn't think it was fair.
Well, here's the thing that kind of got me to thinking, the storyline for this whole NFC West or NFC Conference title game. The fact is, it was a tale of 2 halves. Tampa Bay coming out and scoring 21-10 on Green Bay in the first half. And then that second half, they got 10 points out of that second half. And you could tell easily in that, comparing the 2 halves, taking out the refs and everything, that Green Bay had a legitimate chance to shut the door on Tampa Bay and try to get into that Super Bowl and to deny Tampa Bay of hosting. But Green Bay couldn't capitalize. They only got 16 points out of that second half. So, again, it's one of those things where you should have stepped up more in that second half, especially in that fourth quarter. You had opportunities. You had the time. You've held on to that ball almost the entire game. 34 minutes and 37 seconds worth of possession time for Green Bay compared to Tampa Bay's 25-23. So you had a lot of time. You had possessions. You just didn't capitalize. And they even gave it to you. And I say again, tale of two halves. Tampa Bay and Tom Brady, 3 interceptions. He was picked. So there's no ifs, ands, or buts about Green Bay and the referee for me. The pass interference call at the end of the game. You had the opportunities. You had the time.
Oh, absolutely.
But you didn't capitalize at all. And that's why Tampa Bay is moving on and they're hosting Super Bowl 55.
Yeah, part of the problem is that you get Tom Brady to throw 3 interceptions, right? And in those 3 interceptions, Green Bay turned those 3 turnovers into 6 points.
Score, yeah, every time.
If
this wasn't
points.
A playoff game.
Yeah,
I'm saying if this was a normal game, if this was regular season, Tom Brady throwing 3 picks, that's points right there against them. But playoff time in this game, you only got 6 points. That's
what I'm saying is that's all you got. The play calling in this game for the Packers was a little bit suspect, and some of the decisions made that were out of Aaron Rodgers' control, like, hey, on 4th down when we're right there at the goal line, let's kick the field goal instead of trying to go for the touchdown. That was a difference in the game. I don't know if you realize that.
Yeah,
and there was some
of those
there, but right. Okay, so Bucks move on. They will be playing in Tampa for the Super Bowl. That does not mean that they are the home team technically.
Nope, they are the host city, but they are considered the away team as they are the 5 seed in the tournament. So no matter what happened in the AFC title game, they were going to be considered the away team.
Okay, so now let's go to the AFC Championship. Has the Kansas City Chiefs beating the Buffalo Bills 38-24. Josh Allen, 28 for 48, 287 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a pick. Pat Mahomes, extremely efficient, 29 for 38, 325, and 3 touchdowns. Josh Allen also added on 7 carries for 88 yards. Tyreek Hill went crazy again, 9 receptions for 172 yards. And this one was pretty much over from when it started. I think Buffalo went up. Did they go up 10-0? 9-0?
By halftime. Yeah, by halftime it was first quarter was 9-0 for Buffalo, and then KC came roaring back 21-3. So what, 12-21 by half? If my math's correct, 9-3, 12. So 12-21 by the half. And then Buffalo, I don't know what happened. I mean, this was a team rolling, but I think they ran out of gas, essentially. They got to the AFC title game, first time in years, and they ran out of gas. That's all. I want to say that's all it was for them. They ran out of gas. Diggs, Beasley, they did okay, but not enough, not enough to get over that hump for these guys. Beasley got 7 for 88 yards. Stephon got 6 for 77 yards. It didn't help that Jones helped that they had a fumble or they had recovery. a fumble recovery, and this is just a different Buffalo team, to say the least. And
Yeah,
even
this
the
game was
stats
even
showed
more
it.
lopsided. Yeah, this game was even more lopsided than the score showed it. In the fourth quarter, Kansas City scored a touchdown early in the fourth quarter, and then Buffalo scored a touchdown to match it, and then tacked on a field goal too. So, this was a game that was pretty lopsided almost from the get go. They came out, and the bottom line is Kansas City didn't exactly shut down the receivers for Buffalo, but they slowed them down enough, and Buffalo did not return the favor by any means. They allowed
Oh, yeah.
Kelsey and Tyreek Hill to go over 100 each. Kelsey by himself, man, he had 13 catches for 118 yards, and Tyreek Hill had 9 for 172. So, I mean, that was their offense passing wise. No one else had more than 3 catches on that team. And so,
And looking at the stats, just comparison, KC threw for 325. Buffalo didn't even crack 300. They were at 234. So about 90 some yard difference right there. KC didn't even they rushed for 114, and Buffalo outran them by $129. So I mean, it's KC was throwing it a lot more. Buffalo was keeping it more grounded to a point, and the turnovers they cancel each other out because KC lost a fumble and Buffalo got a pick, got picked. So that one's an even. But
right.
And then time of possession was maybe about a minute off of, or minute and change off of each one. KC had for 31 and 9 seconds. Buffalo had for 28 and 51 seconds. So not a whole lot of difference in that possession. So everyone had chances.
Yeah, I think here's a difference in the game, and it comes down to the quarterback play, right? You got Josh Allen, who's 28 for 48, right? That's 50% completion percentage. His QBR is 60.1. You flip over the Chiefs and you look at Pat Mahomes, right? He's 29 for 38, and his QBR. Yeah, his QBR is 95.8. His rating is a 127.6, while Josh Allen's rating was at 80.8. So at the end of the day, it came down to the QB battle, which is what we knew. And so the story was, can Buffalo hang with Kansas City? And you and Cam thought that Buffalo could hang with Kansas City, and I did not. And so that's what it came down to, and the better quarterback won, and that's fine. So like I had mentioned earlier, we are not doing our Super Bowl prediction today. We will do those next week.
Here's the funny thing. I mean, going by the week picks, I mean, yes, we all tied. Surprisingly, we all tied this week for picks, but because Cam had the points corrected, literally, he hit a bullseye on the points at 62.
Oh, he said 62, right?
Yeah, he said 62, and he got bullseye right between the eyes. So he technically may have won the week, but because Buffalo lost, he was not able to get to Super Bowl to have a chance to tie. Because had we got to Super Bowl, or had the Buffalo Bills won, you two would be one game. You would be a one up, he'd be one back, and it would all come down to Super Bowl, which would have been interesting to say the least.
Oh yeah, that would have been very interesting. Just because if you looked at the picks week in and week out, how many times were we going into Monday Night Football saying, all right, it's the tiebreaker. Let's get this tiebreaker going. Let's figure it out. This is going to decide who wins this week because of that,
We had 7 tiebreaker wins this season outside the playoffs. And you and me hold the number at 3 wins apiece.
And he got
for
one.
tiebreaker
Then.
wins. Yep, he got 1, but outside the playoffs but technically he has 2 now for tiebreakers.
Okay. Well, I think that'll do it for us this week. We will shut it down here. We are the Flex Network. I am Flex Mike at FlexMike11 on Twitter. The SnowMan is on Twitter at AJS Dead Snow on Twitter. Also follow the Flex Network on Twitter at the Flex Network 1. You can follow the Flex Network Wrestling account at FlexNet_PW Elite on Twitter, and then follow the Flex Network Wrestling on YouTube as well. The SnowMan will be doing his thing on Thursday evenings, so check him out on YouTube. Follow him on Twitter. Give him some love, and refer us to your friends. Subscribe, like us on Facebook, the Flex Network on Facebook, the Flex Network 23 on Instagram as well. So until next week, when we make our Super Bowl predictions, I'm Flex Mike, and that is the SnowMan. We will catch you guys later.
Peace out.